Hey everyone, today's story is the story of the Puss in Boots. Once there was a miller who left what he had to his 3 sons, his mill, his donkey, and his cat. The will was soon made. The eldest had the mill, the second the donkey, and the youngest nothing but the cat. The poor young fellow was quite comfortless at having so poor a lot. He thought,
"My brothers may get their living handsomely enough by joining their stocks together. But for me, all I have is a cat. What can I do with that?"
The cat, who had heard all this, but made as if he did not, said to him with a grave and serious air,
"Do not worry, my good master. You have only to give me a bag and get a pair of boots made for me, that I may scamper through the dirt and brambles, and you shall see that you have quite a good fortune in me."
Though the cat's master did not build very much upon what he had said, he had, however, often seen him play a great many cunning tricks to catch rats and mice, as when he used to hang by the heels, or hide himself in the meal, and make as if he were dead, so that it would seem that he needed help. When the cat had what he asked for, he put on the boots, and putting his bag about his neck, he held the strings of it in his 2 forepaws, and went into a hole where there was a great abundance of rabbits. He put bran and sow thistle into his bag, and stretching himself out at length, as if he had been dead, he waited for a young rabbit, not yet acquainted with the deceits of the world, to come and rummage his bag for what he had put into it. Scarce was he lain down, but he had what he wanted. A rash and foolish young rabbit jumped into his bag, and Monsieur Puss, immediately drawing close the strings, had trapped the rabbit. Proud of his prey, he went with it to the palace, and asked to speak with his majesty. He was shooed up the stairs into the king's apartment, and making a low reverence, said to him,
"I have brought you, sir, a rabbit of the warren, which my noble lord Marquis of Carabas,"
for that was the title which Puss was pleased to give his master,
"has commanded me to present to your majesty from him."
"Tell thy master," said the king, "that I thank him, and that he does me a great deal of pleasure."
Another time he went and hid himself among some standing corn, holding still his bag open, and when a brace of partridges ran into it, he drew the strings, and so caught them both. He went and made a present of these to the king, as he had done before of the rabbit which he took in the warren. The king, in like manner, received some of the partridges with great pleasure, and ordered him some money to drink. The cat continued for 2 or 3 months thus to carry his majesty, from time to time, game of his master's taking. One day, in particular, when he knew for certain that the king was to take a ride along the riverside, with his daughter, the most beautiful princess in the world, he said to his master,
"If you will follow my advice, your fortune is made. You have nothing else to do but go and wash yourself in the river. In that part I shall shoe you, and leave the rest to me."
The Marquis of Carabas did what the cat advised him to, without knowing why or wherefore. While he was washing, the king passed by, and the cat began to cry out as loud as he could,
"Help! Help! My lord Marquis of Carabas is drowning!"
At this noise, the king put his head out of his coach window, and finding it was the cat who had so often brought him such good game, he commanded his guards to run immediately to the assistance of his lordship, the Marquis of Carabas. While they were drawing the poor Marquis out of the water, the cat came up to the coach, and told the king that while his master was washing, there came by some rogues who went off with his clothes, and though he had cried out,
"Thieves! Thieves!"
several times as loud as he could, the cunning cat had hidden them under a great stone. The king immediately commanded the officers of his wardrobe to run and fetch one of his best suits for the Lord Marquis of Carabas. The king received him with great kindness, and as the fine clothes he had given him extremely set off his good looks, for he was well made, and very handsome in his person, the king's daughter took a secret liking to him. And the Marquis of Carabas had no sooner cast 2 or 3 respectful and somewhat tender glances, but she fell in love with him to distraction. The king would need to have him come into his coach and take part of the ride. The cat, quite overjoyed to see his project begin to succeed, marched on before, and meeting with some countrymen who were mowing a meadow, he said to them,
"Good people, you there mowing, if you do not tell the king that the meadow you mow belongs to my lord Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small as mincemeat." The king did not fail, asking of the mowers,
"Who does this meadow belong to?"
To my lord Marquis of Carabas,"
they answered, for the cat's threats had made them terribly afraid.
"Truly a fine estate,"
said the king.
"You see, sir,"
said the Marquis,
This is a meadow which never fails to yield plentiful harvest every year.
The master cat, who still went on before, met with some reapers and said to them,
Good people, you there reaping, if you do not tell the king that all this corn belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small as mincemeat.
The king passed by a moment later and asked,
Whose corn is this?
To my lord Marquis of Carabas.
replied the reapers. And the king again congratulated the marquis. The master cat, who went always before, said the same words to all he met. And the king was astonished at the vast estates of my lord Marquis of Carabas. Monsieur Puss came at last to a stately castle, the master of which was an ogre, the richest had ever been known. For all the lands which the king had then gone over belonged to this castle. The cat, who had taken care to inform himself who this ogre was, and what he could do, asked to speak with him, saying he could not pass so near his castle without having the honor of paying his respects to him. The ogre received him as civilly as an ogre could do, and made him sit down.
I have been told that you have the gift of being able to change yourself into all sorts of creatures. You can, for example, transform yourself into a lion or elephant.
This is true.
Answered the ogre very briskly.
And to convince you, you shall see me now become a lion.
Puss was so sadly terrified at the sight of a lion so near him that he immediately got into the gutter, not without abundance of trouble and danger because of his boots, which were ill-suited for walking upon the tiles. A little while after, when Puss saw that the ogre had resumed his natural form, he came down and owned that he had been very much frightened.
I have also been informed, but I know not how to believe, that you also have the power to take on the shape of the smallest animals. For example, to change yourself into a rat or a mouse. But I must say, this sounds impossible.
Impossible? You shall see that presently.
And at the same time changed into a mouse and began to run about the floor. Puss no sooner perceived this, but he fell upon him and ate him up. Meanwhile, the king was passing this fine castle of the ogres, and had a mind to go into it. Puss, who had heard the noise of his majesty's coach running over the drawbridge, ran out and said to the king,
Your majesty is welcome to the castle of my lord Marquis of Carabas.
What? My lord Marquis? This is your castle? There can be nothing finer than this court and all the buildings which surround it. Let us go in, if you please.
The marquis gave his hand to the princess and followed the king, who went up first. They passed into a spacious hall, where they found a magnificent feast, which the ogre had prepared for his friends, who were that very day to visit him, but dared not to enter knowing the king was there. His majesty was perfectly charmed with the good qualities of my lord Marquis of Carabas, and as was his daughter, who was fallen violently in love with him, and seeing the vast estate he possessed, said to him, after having drank 5 or 6 glasses,
You must marry my daughter.
The marquis, making several low bows, accepted the honor which his majesty bestowed upon him, and that very same day married the princess.
I'm sorry I doubted you. You have turned out to be the best cat. I'm going to make you a great lord.
And true to his word, the marquis did. Puss became a great lord, and never ran after mice anymore, but only for fun. Thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed the stories, hit the subscribe button, and you'll be updated next Friday when the next story comes out.